what if he did that? What if he walked into those things fully aware of how scared he was? And that actually inspired me more, right? So what am I willing to do afraid? I hope you'll do whatever you do as passionately as he did it.
We all have stuff that comes up in our life that is terrifying. Because failure is terrifying. Charlie, obviously he was scared. Of course, you do things scared anyways, because that's what God calls us to do. And he says, fear not. Got our back. And when we move in spite of that fear, that's faith.
If you really look at the correlation of what we're talking about, it has so many rhythms of life where brokenness leads to growth. Like that rhythm, that pain becoming into something bigger, that pain into becoming something greater. That's just been like the rhythm of life. But I think it's the avoidance of that pain that make men specifically turn away from Jesus. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Operation Redwood. Today, I'm joined with one of my brothers who I've been doing life with for the last 7-8 years, Mike Toucher. He's a financial pro. This guy's got so much knowledge in the business realm, but today he's here for a specific reason. We're going to talk about masculinity, manhood, faith, and especially with light of what's happened to Charlie Kirk and his family. I think this is such a timely conversation to discuss what has God called men to be. Because at the root of everything that's happening in our culture today, I think that really is the problem. The solution is Jesus. And we've talked about it before. It is not about getting people into the church. This is about bringing Jesus into the world. And as always, we're joined with my co-host, Samuel. Before we get started and hand it off to Mike, anything you want us to preface the conversation with, Sam?
It's simply, if this hasn't changed you in some way, I would invite God into your heart and to listen. And I'm not asking anyone to become Charlie Kirk, but I do hope it inspires many people to think about how they're sharing their faith. That's all.
I love that. We're going to get right into it because, Mike, I'm excited that you're here. I know you're going to, what am I saying? You're going to be back for another one.
I appreciate you, man.
Go ahead, tell people a little bit of what you're about. And then I want you to answer the question of what's a challenge with masculinity and manhood today? But before that, tell people what you're doing. What's going on?
What am I about? All right. So I'm a financial advisor down here in Sarasota, Florida. And yeah, of course, there's the financial elements of it where we help people with their investments, planning for their future, small business owners, all that fun stuff. But really a lot of what we do is coaching. And it's not the typical coach that you hear about on the internet where I'm going to tell you a course and try to get you to subscribe to this or that. It's really helping people navigate the craziness in life and how it impacts their financial future, making sure that, like what we're going through right now, right? Insane headlines that really pull at our emotions and create uncertainty in this wild time. Things that push us away from faith sometimes, make us question things. We're in your corner. That's what we do. And we try to coach people through the uncertainties in life to keep them on track, keep them on plan, not just financially, but behaviorally in life. And part of that, with our brothers who believe, is staying on that path with your faith as well.
I think that's so relevant to this conversation because what you're doing is trying to get people on track with their finances. But then if you really look at the bigger picture, there's so many people off track, not just with their finances, but with their relationship with God, with the direction their life is going and all these things. And this is not to pass judgment on people, but this is just merely, these are the facts.
Yeah, almost like imposter syndrome, right? I should be doing more. I know I can be doing more. Somebody is doing more than me, and it's something that we all battle with. but making sure that we're taking the steps to at least be doing something is always better than nothing. And keeping that relationship alive with the people that we can talk to improve that is always super important.
Love that. That. So let me go back to the original question of first off, what's your take with everything that's going on today? Because, before you share your answer, I've been shook up the last couple of days, myself and Samuel, and a lot of the guys on our team, if not our whole team, because this whole thing that with Charlie, regardless of if you agreed with his political approaches or that not everything that he says you have to agree with, right? And that's life. You're not going to 100% agree every single time. But I felt like the Christian community took a huge gut punch with the loss of Charlie, because in a sense, he's doing what we do here at Redwood, speaking about faith, speaking truth, and being boldly, what's on it? And, he loses his life in doing so. What are your thoughts on that, Mike?
I've definitely struggled with it because I'm being honest, Charlie Kirk was a much better person than I probably ever will be. He was tolerant and respectful. Frankly, I wish I did. I strive to be that way, of course, but he was such a shining example of the way to handle yourself with people who disagree with you. And to see someone at that level be taken from us, it's almost like, well, if the most perfect of us, if someone at that high of a level is removed, then what are we doing? What are we supposed to do? How do we make up for that? Because those are conversations that need to be had. And when we stop talking, that's when real issues start happening. Doesn't matter if it's in a business, if it's in your relationship with your girlfriend or your wife. When communication dies, the relationship dies. And in this country, if we stop talking to each other, we stop having at least enough respect to hear the person out, then we're doomed.
Sam, I know this is hitting you a little bit. I can see it in your face. What's going on with you?
Yeah, I've been thinking, and with what Mike shared, I heard this take yesterday, and it really made me think. But I appreciate what you said, Mike, there about maybe, and I agree. Maybe Charlie is this thing that many of us in the Christian community aspire to. I think that's part of what is affecting us. But I don't remember who it was that said this, but I appreciate it so much. This person was saying, what if he wasn't this thing that we put up on this pedestal? What if he was afraid? What if he was he was fully conscious and fully aware? And I'm pretty sure he was. I knew he knew what he was getting into. He got death threats all the time. He had his own security staff. What if he did that? What if he walked into those things fully aware of how scared he was? And that actually inspired me more. Right? So what am I willing to do afraid? And I just want to inspire myself, inspire my children, and inspire people that I meet to even if I don't agree with you, I hope you'll do whatever you do as passionately as he did it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's really a lot of life, and being a man and being that source of strength in your family, right, is doing things scared, right? You think police officers, firefighters, they're never scared. Soldiers are never scared. Going to work every day, knowing if you're going to be able to produce, pay the bills, if you're going to fail in your business, that's scary too. We all have stuff that comes up in our life that is terrifying, because failure is terrifying. Charlie, obviously he was scared. Of course, you do things scared anyways, because that's what God calls us to do. And it says, fear not, got our back. And when we move in spite of that fear, that's faith.
And that's what I think is hitting people, is that he did it anyway, right? And then this just immense humbleness. And I see a correlation, and please don't hear this as I'm trying to put him on the same pedestal as Jesus, but there's this correlation that I see. Charlie was driven. Like he wasn't doing this because Charlie wanted to make a name for himself. Charlie did it because he was called and inspired and led and pushed. I mean, I think in his own right, he would probably be like, nah, I got better things. I mean, he was a brilliant mind. There's tons of things I'm sure he could have done. And he certainly probably could have been a future president, but that wasn't what was driving him. And what drove Jesus was us. What drove Charlie was his love for humanity. And again, I just hope that what happens as a result of this, and it certainly happened to me, like anytime something hits the faith-filled and or the global church, it only grows stronger. Where the church is growing the most right now is in the Middle East. The Iranian church is booming right now. The underground church is and in other Middle East places. Anytime there's persecution, so think about how Christianity was born. So I know it's weird, but that's where our hope is. That's where I believe Christians' hope is this isn't a tragedy. It is, but it is the birth of our strength anytime we're down. Look at how our faith started.
Right.
Our Savior was killed. That was our great hope. It's always a contradiction.
Yeah, it's almost like things that hurt give us the most opportunity for growth. And God is so powerful that he uses those things to multiply and to make things better. Like you said, the way our faith was started. I mean, it started with the death, but it also came back with the resurrection and going from Jesus to the disciples to across the land to everything that we read today in the Bible. It's taking tragedy and multiplying it for his good.
You know, I love where this conversation is at. And part of me feels like, you know, putting this into perspective, because I know we have a wide range of listeners. I know primarily it's men at a certain age and we have our ideal demographic, but it's such a wide range. I know some people are going to be in here, probably jump into this conversation and be like, I kind of get what they're talking about. But if you really look at the correlation of what we're talking about, it has so many rhythms of life where brokenness leads to growth. Like that rhythm, that pain becoming into something bigger, that pain into becoming something greater. That's just been like the rhythm of life. But I think it's the avoidance of that pain that make men specifically turn away from Jesus. It's like why people don't like to work out, because you end up
That's
hurting.
exactly what I was thinking. I was like, we've literally been given a blueprint to this with our
Mhm.
bodies. It's when you want to see growth, when you want to feel good, you have to find a point of pain. That pain in your muscles is literally micro tears and breaking them down and making them weaker temporarily. But God gave us the ability to recover. It gave us, the way protein is absorbed in our bodies to rebuild that muscle. So if God does that on the simple daily level of something as vain as working out, wanting to look bigger, stronger, sexier, whatever it may be, right? If he uses it at that level, what's he going to use for everything else? He's so great to think that he's limited in any way is obviously nuts. But I just think it's a great example of, yeah, you have to go through pain in order to really see the result. I think it was Muhammad Ali. They asked him like how many sit-ups he does. He says, I don't start counting until it starts hurting. Like, all right, that's how you know you're going to be the greatest.
But you're right. And that's one of the reasons why I think for people who are lacking discipline, right? Even the Bible talks about discipline. We need discipline. That is a part of what we are called to be and to have in our life is discipline. But that physical discipline of being able to break things down and then build them up, that's really that pain, right? Like we're just saying, that pain is what men avoid. And I think that is why we are at the place we are in our culture. Men have been desensitized. They've been, just numbing themselves with these short-term pleasures. And it's not a reason. I'm not surprised why culture is the way it is. today. It's a lack of identity, a lack of direction.
So I'm going to jump in here on this. And I agree. So if men in particular even struggle with doing something that is so obvious and so clear with their bodies, and we could discuss that crisis in and of itself. But I work as a therapist, so my realm is the emotions. And I was sitting here thinking about this and going like, okay, that it's that clear. And I study the aspects of, okay, so what needs to get broken down. And Mike, you can probably study what needs to be broken down in finances. And right when someone comes in and humbles themselves and say, I'm screwed up with money, that's when the growth happens, right? So there's also this requirement to be honest with yourself. And I think that's what Charlie was pushing in people's faces. He was like, because I was watching some of his clips, and I think that's why people saw him as like, okay, so let me back up 1 second and say, Mike, I agree with you. He is incredibly humble and he cared so deeply, but what he was doing was holding up a mirror to people, and people hate that. They just hate it with a passion.
Absolutely.
They hate when their intellectual laziness is put in their face. And nobody likes a personal trainer, right? That pushes them, right? They like the one that's like, do 5 sit-ups, whatever. And they're not saying don't start counting them until they hurt, right? And honestly, my wife has said, I would never come to see you for therapy. You are so mean and direct and harsh. But I only do that for people that need that. Like you've got to have a starting point. And by the way, I want to put this one piece out. So like we've over mystified it. It is this simple, even in emotions. Vulnerability, period. Like break it down, right? So think about it the same way as you think about it with your body. You break it down to build it up. That's how it works. But it's scarier and it's even harder that we have more protection emotionally than we do physically. I hope that's making sense.
Definitely. 100% on the point that you're saying is, yes, Charlie was effective. Effective, similar to people. What that he was saying, he was holding up a mirror. And when you're 100 pounds overweight, do you really want to see yourself in the mirror with your shirt off?
Yeah.
It's disgusting. You feel shame. So he was holding up that mirror, letting people see how fat they were intellectually. They felt that shame. They know they should be better. And that's what caused people to, like, disgusting as it is right now, is just like would be 100 pounds overweight if I saw them with their shirt off. Disgusting, celebrating someone's death. Disgusting. I would actually rather see you with your shirt off 100 pounds overweight.
But it's weakness. It's weakness personified, right? So we're seeing it. But I do want to add this one piece. America has had a long-standing history of political violence. I'm not condoning it. I'm saying this is what we do. And I'm not condoning it at all. I'm saying historically, we need to look at this. This is not new, and it's shocking, and it should be, but we have often solved our political differences using gunfire. And I hear all these calls for like, we need to stop guns. Like, okay, even if that would be a good idea, it's never happening. So let's move on.
If we look back, just a couple examples, JFK, right? Martin Luther King. These are tragic events that happened in the not so distant past. And then there became a moment of, what's this going to change? What's this going to stand for? How are we going to remember this? Not just in the history books, but how do we change the way as Americans we behave, how we treat each other? Martin Luther King's a great example. So it's like now we all kind of have a responsibility. If you supported him or you didn't support him, where do we go from here? And do we want to be like him or let him impact our lives? Are we going to change this country for the better? Whatever that may be.
I love where we are. For the sake of time, I know we got to wrap soon. I'm going to ask you guys, take 30 seconds. Think about the message that you want the listener, the viewer, the watcher that's going to listen to this episode. What's the takeaway you want them? What do you want them to take away from this 20, 30-minute conversation we've had?
Sam, you want to go first?
As you said that, Angelo, it's the same thing that I want to take away. If what happened to Mr. Kirk, if what happened to Irina isn't what happened on 9/11, because these are all back to back, isn't causing you to have a heart check, what's happening? That I hope that causes you to go, why am I so desensitized? Why am I so numb? And if it is causing you to think about it, let it open your heart, right? And we're talking about masculinity. Masculinity is an ability to be honest with yourself,
Mm.
right? And you know that you know that you know who you are. And something like this only solidifies, only makes who you are stronger, right? So I think about The Office. So I was a big Office fan. So I'll do it harder. Like, do whatever you're doing even harder. Do what it is that you do with more passion. Do what it is that you do with more insistence, because our days are getting short and I'm turning 50, have less ahead of me. And someone asked me, like, do you think Jesus is coming? And it's the same answer I give all the time. It's closer today than it was yesterday.
So for me, it's, you and I talked on the phone yesterday real briefly, and it's, yes, this is tragic what happened. There's no getting around that. But whether we like it or not, God said his job was done. He called him home. And sometimes God can use death more than when we were here. In this example, I think that's really what's going to happen. But we don't know when our time's up, whether it's that girl that was on the train, right? She had no idea what was coming. Whether it was people who went to work on 9/11, they had no idea. Charlie Kirk doing things that he's done thousands of times, talking on campuses, right? We have no idea when our time's coming. So make the most of it, man. Speak what you feel, lead with your heart, take the time to be vulnerable with the people that you care about and love. I'm not the best at it sometimes. As men, we tend to get defensive quickly. We take things personally when it questions our ability to protect, provide, to take care of our family. We get very defensive very quickly, instinctually. So for me, it's leading with your heart, speaking up, doing the things that need to be done now, and don't put them off until tomorrow, because you might not be here. We're going to go home when he calls us, and making the most of today, it's going to help you sleep better at night, knowing if you don't wake up tomorrow, how are people going to remember you? Were you someone who took action and spoke your faith? People knew where you stood as far as your moral compass goes, your belief goes, whether that's politically or otherwise. People should know where you stand, so that way, if they have similar beliefs and values, they know they're not alone, right? They be more convicted with what they feel and believe. So that's really what it hit home for me, man, is we don't know when our time is, and make the most of it, because God's got a purpose for us. He's going to use us. We want to be the best steward of the talents he's given us, but we don't know what that game plan looks like. We don't know how short that timeline is. So get to work now. And when he calls you home, when you have that conversation with him, he says, "Well done, my good and faithful servant."
I love that. I love that. I think you boys summarized it so perfectly. And this was my journal entry yesterday. And I know as we wrap, I just want to share it. And this was the line that I wrote: in our limited time, what's the biggest impact we can make? That was yesterday, after talking with Mike, after talking to you, Sam, and, just seeking answers from God. And I love how you both just had beautiful, beautiful, powerful answers. Mike, thank you for being on the show. This is just one of many that you're going to be on. So I've already, signed that. So you're good. You're part of the Redwood tribe, brother. So I appreciate you. Thank you for being here, being open. I know some of the topics that we talked about are not always the easiest, but I think you both handled it with grace. And I appreciate you guys for just sharing your wisdom and being vulnerable. As for everybody else, Redwood out. and we'll see you guys next week.